No fancy intro tonight. No attitude. I'm just sitting and researching. Complicated grief. Emotional turmoil including anger, guilt, and sadness. After separating from a narcissist, it is common to experience complicated grief, or even complex PTSD. Unlike the typical grieving process, this kind of grief is tangled with emotions like anger, guilt, longing, and sadness, all rolled together. These conflicting feelings can make it really hard to let go, to accept the relationship is over, and to find any real sense of closure. This emotional turmoil can be even more intense if there are lingering fears about how the narcissist might retaliate or interfere. While the best outcome might be if the narcissist discards the person entirely, it can leave a feeling of emptiness or lack of closure. With the narcissist's limited emotional and social maturity, it's almost impossible to have a clean, healthy separation, which makes moving on feel even more complicated. For many people who recently cut ties or ended a relationship with an abusive narcissist, education is a key part of their recovery process. Learning more about narcissism and narcissistic abuse from self-help books, support groups, or articles online can help them make sense of their experiences. For many people, research connects them to other survivors who have had similar experiences with narcissistic abuse. This can be very validating and can help people in recovery find support while also helping them understand and make sense of the abuse. This process can empower abuse survivors, while also helping them find closure and move towards the next stage of healing. The AC is blowing. I'm gonna go grab a jacket. Recovery, self-care, and healing the wounds of narcissistic abuse. In the recovery stage, the focus shifts to reconnecting with a sense of identity and beginning to heal from the effects of the narcissistic abuse. Self-care, supportive relationships, and engaging in activities that bring peace or joy become essential tools for rebuilding. This phase is often about learning to prioritize personal feelings, wants, and needs, sometimes for the first time in years. For those not yet in therapy, this can be a great time to consider it, as therapy provides guidance and support for the journey of self-recovery. This stage is all about rebuilding self-worth, rediscovering self-compassion, and nurturing a renewed sense of independence and identity. Many find help through local therapist directories or online therapy platforms. Narcissists often guilt and pressure others into prioritizing their needs, leaving little room for anyone else. Many people in these relationships end up devoting most of their time and energy to caring for the narcissist, sometimes losing touch with their own goals and desires. This is why the stage of reclaiming independence is so important in recovery. It's all about rebuilding life based on personal values, wants, and dreams. For many, this process might mean going back to school, changing careers, or finally exploring hobbies and passions that were put on hold. Rebuilding a supportive network of people who value healthy, two-way relationships is often part of this stage too. This step helps people create a meaningful, fulfilling life beyond the abuse, one that feels hopeful and centered around genuine well-being. Meaning making, finding meaning in the abuse and getting closure. At this stage, most feel they've healed enough that the grief and emotional weight no longer linger in daily life. For some, getting to this point feels like closure. For others, it's natural to go one step further, finding meaning from the painful experience. This isn't about feeling grateful for what happened, but rather about recognizing how the trauma led to personal growth, whether it's greater resilience, healthier boundaries, or a newfound sense of self-love. Paying it forward, finding ways to give back or help others. The final step in healing often involves finding ways to pay it forward and sharing lessons learned to help others. Some go on to start blogs, lead support groups, or create resources that advocate for and empower those affected by narcissistic abuse. Others find more personal ways to make an impact, like teaching people about healthy boundaries, supporting friends in difficult relationships, or simply sharing their experiences with those who need encouragement. Finding ways to help others offers a unique sense of closure and turns a painful past into a path towards positive change. Stepping into the pain and letting it wash over you, rather than trying to hold on to what happened and how it hurt you. In the hope of defying that pain and breaking the cycle consistently and thoroughly in what ways we can, day by day, for the things we are capable of. Low points are not failures. They may be setbacks, they may be confusion and grief, frustration and otherwise, but they are simply part of the natural flow of things. What goes up must come down. What slings left may wrap around. I would say this is the only one that really sits with me, because I do think myself as decent. I don't have a traditional form of success. I don't have power or influence. But at times I feel like people who look over my surface and pass on are missing out. And I have to remind myself that it's not my place to try and pull them into it. I just get to be me and they get to go their own way. Mentally exhausted! Losing self confidence. Question your sanity. Hmm. 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 Dealing with a narcissist can erode your sense of self-worth, as their manipulative tactics often aim to undermine your confidence and control your perceptions. This personal strengths inventory is designed to help you reclaim your power by focusing on your inherent strengths. By identifying and embracing your positive attributes, you can protect your self-esteem from the damaging effects of narcissistic behavior. Recognizing your strengths not only helps to counteract the negative influence of a narcissist, but also promotes a more resilient, empowered mindset, enabling you to navigate these challenging relationships with greater confidence. Take some time to read through the list of attributes carefully and circle at least 6 strengths that you believe apply to you. Self-control. I manage my emotions and impulses, which allows me to make thoughtful choices. Confidence. I believe in my abilities and have positive expectations of success. Flexibility. I adapt to change, adjust my approach, and think creatively in new situations. Ambition. I have a strong desire and determination to achieve success and accomplish my goals. Wisdom. I use knowledge and experience to make sound judgments and decisions. Creativity. I think outside the box and generate original ideas. Curiosity. A desire to ask questions, discover new things, and expand my knowledge. Bravery. I face fear, uncertainty, or danger with determination and resolve. Fairness. I believe in just treatment and that everyone has equal opportunities. That is horribly phrased. Fairness. I believe in just treatment and that everyone deserves their own chances. I don't believe that everyone has equal opportunities. If that was the case, then the world would be very peaceful, wouldn't it? Ah, forgiveness. I let go of resentment and anger, choosing to understand and move on from a hurtful experience. Gratitude. I appreciate and am thankful for the positive aspects of life. Honesty. I am truthful and sincere in my words and actions. Optimism. I The way they have this phrased is intentional, but I don't like the phrasing. Optimism. I expect the best possible outcome and believe in a brighter future. I have a modest view of my importance, which allows me to learn from others. Humor. I have the ability to find and share amusement and create a lighter perspective on challenges. Kindness. I am caring, considerate, and desire to help others. Patience. I stay composed while waiting or facing challenges, without getting frustrated or giving up. I have an love of learning. I have an enthusiasm for acquiring knowledge and skills, driven by desire for understanding. Perseverance. I am committed to seeing things through despite obstacles and setbacks. Open-mindedness. I am willing to consider new ideas and perspectives with receptiveness. Teamwork. I collaborate effectively with others to achieve a shared goal. I could work on that one. Social awareness. I understand the emotions, needs, and perspectives of others. Spirituality. I believe in a purpose or connection to something larger than myself. Oh, that's complicated. Enthusiasm. I have a zest and passion that fuels my excitement and motivation. Generosity. I give my time, resources, or skills to help others without expecting anything in return. Problem solving. I am able to analyze situations, identify solutions, and overcome challenges effectively. Dependability. I am reliable and others can count on me to fulfill my commitments and responsibilities. I wish. Authenticity. I live and express myself genuinely, being true to my values and beliefs. Adventurousness. I am eager to experience new and exciting things with a sense of curiosity and daring. Assertiveness. I communicate my needs, wants, and opinions clearly and confidently. Independence. I am self-sufficient and resourceful, taking responsibility for my own well-being. Logical. Logically grounded. I am able to think clearly and reach sound conclusions based on reason and evidence. Hmm. Hmm. Which attributes and strengths is absurdity sitting next to? Because I don't see it listed here. Because flexibility is definitely one of them. Authenticity is another. Adventurousness is another. Authentic, adventurous, flexibility. Adventurous, authentic, adventurous, embrace a flexibility. Brave, authentic, adventurous, flexibility. Adventurousness. Adventurousness. Mm. Alright. Mm, Instead of thinking of it as an addition, I'll want to think of it. I'm forgetting the word, but I know the concept. Hmm. The word I'm thinking of starts with a name. With an M. Math. A matrix of bravery, authenticity, adventurousness, and flexibility. Adventurous is not all four of these things combined together, but all four of these things coexisting within a matrix of stability. Hmm. There we go. Mm, 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 mm. Now that is, in such a context, the more one tries to be authentic, the more contrived and artificial the effort may appear, creating a cycle of self-referential validation that borders on the insane, the absurd. Okay. Whoa. What begins as a genuine quest for self-fulfillment can become a commercialized ritual, where experiences are curated not for their intrinsic value, but for their symbolic resonance on societal media. The result is a form of collective narcissism, where individuals collectively celebrate positivity and self-improvement, while reinforcing superficial norms. In this stabilized matrix of traits, the line between genuine self-expression and performative identity blurs, leading to a cultural landscape where the earnest and ironic coexist in uneasy tension. Absurdity lies not in the traits themselves, but in how they are manipulated and interpreted within a system that values image over substance. Looks like I found a note, a detail. Darvo is an initialism that stands for deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. It is used to describe a defensive manipulation tactic used by one person to avoid being held accountable for their acts of aggression towards another person. It is an extreme form of gaslighting behavior that can be perpetuated by an individual or group. In the latter instance, it is referred to as institutional Darvo. The creator of this concept presentation, because it's not that the concept didn't exist, it's that they finally found a way to present the concept in a way that others could understand. First conceptualized Darvo in an article she published in 1997. A professor at psychology, he explains that perpetrators of Darvo deny their behavior, attack the person who is confronting them, and reverse roles of victim and offender. According to Dr. Freud, the Darvo tactic can be used by people who inflict harm on others as well as bystanders who support them. Sometimes the purpose of Darvo is to minimize a transgression, and at other times it is used to deny that transgression ever took place. The Darvo tactic can be a means used in the process of scapegoating. It changes the focus from the misdeeds of the true culprit and emphasizes real or invented shortcomings of the person they harmed. For example, a perpetrator breaks the law by assaulting another person, but minimizes the crime by claiming they were actually the victim by framing the victim-survivor acts of resistance as the actual result. Thus, they flip the tables, turning black into white and white into black, making it appear as if they are the victim and the actual victim survivor is the perpetrator. As Dr. Freud explains, this occurs, for instance, when an actually guilty perpetrator assumes the role of the falsely accused and attacks the accuser's credibility and blames the accuser of being the perpetrator of a false accusation. Darvo often relies on cultural biases and people's propensity to discriminate. It is most successful in the context of systemic oppression, i.e., racism, sexism, sanctism, enablism. Hmm. What is pathological narcissism? Pathological narcissism is a term used to describe a shame-based expression of the trait that manifests as an addiction to external validation. It can also be characterized by oscillations between grandiose and vulnerable states associated with this personality type. Over time, the disruptions in emotional regulation can lead to diminished psychological well-being and interpersonal functioning. Yeah. How does pathological narcissism develop? Ah. Pathological narcissism is a construct used to describe a maladaptive and socially destructive form of self-idealization. In clinical practice, it's known as narcissistic personality disorder, and in popular culture, it's called malignant narcissism. Oh. Ah. It is understood to develop as a defensive ego structure that protects a wounded true self by shielding it with an omnipotent false self. A fortress for the ego. Pathological narcissism is a post-traumatic stress adaptation that develops to protect an injured psyche. It functions to desensitize the mind to feelings of dread, fragility, and hypervigilance by numbing vulnerable parts of the self. While it shields the self, it also results in low empathy for others and an inability to form authentic emotional bonds. A fragmented self. Highly stressful or traumatic experiences in early life fracture and sever the self from pervasive feelings of shame and humiliation, which remain hidden in the subconscious mind. An all-powerful self serves to cloak the fragility of a wounded true self. Some characteristics of pathological narcissism are that it is self-love to the exclusion of others, addiction to validation, harmful to self and others, dangerous to the mental health of self and others, and uncompromising. That last part is the most key component. Second most key component, self-love to the exclusion of others. The others are just products of the first two. This article examines the use of triangulation in the context of the narcissistic abuse cycle and how it impacts the power dynamics of interpersonal relationships. Triangulation is the introduction of a third party into a two-person relationship. Meanwhile, the pop culture understanding of triangulation is that it is trying to force someone to pick your side. It is a common feature of the de-evaluation stage for the cycle of narcissistic abuse. In the realm of relationships, power dynamics play a significant role in shaping the dynamics between individuals. One dynamic that often goes unnoticed is triangulation. A complex maneuver employed by narcissists to maintain power and control over their victims. Understanding the subtle and insidious nature of triangulation is crucial in recognizing and breaking free from the toxic grip of a narcissistic relationship. This intricate manipulation technique involves the narcissist intentionally introducing a third party into the relationship, creating a dynamic of competition, jealousy, and insecurity. By doing so, the narcissist can effectively exploit and control their victims, leveraging their emotions and insecurities against them. Definition and characteristics of narcissistic abuse in relationships. Narcissistic abuse occurs in a relationship when one person seeks to assert dominance over another for exploitative purposes. It is an inherently antisocial pattern of behavior that is difficult to spot because it is passive-aggressive and often framed as care, concern, or love. Its aim is to create an unequal power dynamic in which one person is conditioned into the belief that they are subordinate to another through the use of a range of manipulation tactics, including put-downs, gaslighting, and triangulation. Perpetrators of narcissistic abuse act out of a maladaptive need to numb feelings of insecurity and toxic shame by incessantly seeking validation of their perceived superiority to others. One of the core thinking errors of dysfunctional narcissism is the belief that for the perpetrator to affirm the supremacy they attribute to themselves, they must ensure that someone else is beneath them. The more prominent and successful their victims are at the beginning of the narcissistic abuse cycle, the greater sense of validation the perpetrator feels when they succeed in subjugating them. If you're I'm sitting here looking at the core thinking error of believing that you must have someone below you to ensure that you can enforce the idea of being above others, which is sad. You're so insecure about your position and your confidence that you don't want an equal sitting next to you. And you don't look to nurture equals to sit next to you. So to show that you can not just be awesome, but teach other people how to be awesome without abusing their environments. Hmm. What is triangulation in psychology? Triangulation involves the narcissist intentionally introducing a third party, such as an ex-partner, a friend, or a family member, into the relationship. This third party serves as a tool for the narcissist to create a sense of competition, jealousy, and insecurity within the victim. By constantly comparing the victim to the third party, the narcissist effectively undermines the victim's self-esteem and creates a constant state of tension and anxiety. This manipulation tactic allows the narcissist to maintain control over the victim, as they become the primary source of validation and attention. The third part may be brought in as a messenger, agent, or confidant, also known as a flying monkey, or presented as an idealized object that triggers feelings of inferiority in the victim. Sometimes called the narcissistic person's new supply, their new source of validation. Triangulation can also occur in families. Research shows that children and people who experience destabilizing triangulation are left feeling caught, trapped, or torn between parents. Furthermore, the triangulation of people and children can have serious mental health consequences, such as increased anxiety and self-blame. Youths who are triangulated into parental disputes might feel greater responsibility for the conflict and feel more threatened by parental behavior than might youths who are not involved in the parents' disputes. The role of triangulation in the narcissistic abuse cycle. Triangulation serves several purposes in narcissistic relationships. Firstly, it allows the narcissist to exert control over the victim by keeping them on edge and constantly seeking their approval. By creating a sense of competition and jealousy, the narcissist ensures that the victim remains focused on them and their needs. The victim then becomes trapped in a never-ending cycle of trying to prove their worth and gain the narcissist's validation. Secondly, triangulation provides the narcissist with a sense of power and superiority. By pitting the victim against a third party, the narcissist can reinforce their own inflated sense of self-importance. They derive pleasure from seeing the victim's emotional turmoil and insecurity, as it reaffirms their belief that they are superior to others. No, no. Lastly, triangulation serves as a means for the narcissist to deflect blame and responsibility. By introducing a third party into the relationship, the narcissist can shift the focus away from their own shortcomings and onto the victim or third party. This manipulation tactic allows for the narcissist to avoid accountability for their actions and maintain their position of power. Identifying the signs and symptoms of triangulation is essential. Recognizing and addressing the manipulative tactics employed by narcissists. Some common signs of triangulation in a relationship include constant comparison. The narcissist frequently compares the victim to a third party, highlighting their flaws and shortcomings to create a sense of competition and insecurity. Gaslighting. The narcissist manipulates the victim's perception of reality, making them doubt their own experiences and feelings. They may deny or invalidate the victim's concerns about the third party's involvement. Isolation. The narcissist tries to isolate the victim from friends and family, making them dependent solely on the narcissist for validation and support. Intermittent reinforcement. The victim experiences a constant cycle of highs and lows in the relationship. as the narcissist alternates between showering them with affection and withholding it. Low self-esteem. The victim constantly feels inadequate and unworthy of the narcissist's love and attention, as they are led to believe that they can never measure up to the third party. Sometimes I wish shit like this wasn't possible for people to inflict upon each other. Ah. Oh. Um. Oh. Triangulation can have severe psychological effects on the victim of a narcissistic relationship. The constant comparison and competition fostered by the narcissist can lead to feelings of insecurity, low self-esteem, and self-doubt. The victim may develop anxiety and depression as a result of the emotional roller coaster created by the narcissist's manipulation tactics. Furthermore, triangulation can erode the victim's sense of identity and autonomy. They become hyper-focused on meeting the narcissist's demands and gaining their approval, losing sight of their own needs and desires. The victim may also develop a fear of abandonment, as they are conditioned to believe that they are replaceable and that their worth is contingent on their ability to outperform the third party. The long-term effects of triangulation can be devastating, impacting the victim's ability to form healthy relationships and trust others. It is crucial for victims to recognize the detrimental effects of triangulation and take steps towards breaking free from the cycle of abuse. How to recognize triangulation. Recognizing and breaking free from triangulation in a narcissistic relationship is a challenging but necessary process for healing and recovery. Here are some strategies that can help victims regain their autonomy and escape the toxic grip of triangulation. Educate yourself. Learn about narcissistic personality disorder and the tactics employed by narcissists. Understanding the dynamics at play in your relationship can empower you to recognize and address the manipulation tactics, including triangulation. Build a support network. Reach out to trusted friends, family members, or support groups who can provide you with emotional support and guidance throughout the healing process. Set boundaries. Establish clear boundaries with the narcissist and communicate your needs and expectations. Be firm in asserting your autonomy and refusing to engage in their manipulative tactics. Focus on self-care. Prioritize your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Engage in activities that bring you joy and nurture your sense of self-worth. Consider seeking therapy or coaching to work through the psychological effects of triangulation and develop healthy coping strategies by seeking professional help. Breaking free from triangulation requires strength, perseverance, and a commitment to self-healing. It is essential to remember that you deserve to be in a relationship that is based on mutual respect, trust, and love. It is essential to remember that you deserve to be in a relationship that is based on mutual respect, trust, and love. Healing and recovery after experiencing triangulation in a narcissistic relationship is a journey that requires practice and self-compassion. Here are some steps you can take towards healing. Acknowledge your emotions. Allow yourself to feel and process the range of emotions that arise from the experience of triangulation. Give yourself permission to grieve the loss of the relationship and the betrayal of trust. Practice self-compassion. Be kind and gentle with yourself as you navigate the healing process. Remind yourself that you are not to blame for the narcissist's manipulative tactics. Rebuild your self-esteem. Engage in activities that boost your self-esteem and reinforce your sense of self-worth. Surround yourself with supportive and loving people who appreciate and value you. Practice opening up to them and letting them be there with you, even if they can't be there for you all the time. Set new relationship standards. Reflect on the lessons learned from the narcissistic relationship and establish healthy boundaries and standards for future relationships. Trust your instincts and prioritize your emotional well-being. Consider working with a therapist or coach who specializes in narcissistic abuse to gain further insight and guidance on your healing journey. Remember, healing takes time. And remember, healing takes time. And it is a process unique to each individual. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate your progress. And know that you have the strength within you to overcome the effects of triangulation and create a brighter future. Triangulation is an insidious manipulation tactic employed by narcissists to maintain control and dominance over their victims. By understanding the power dynamics at play in narcissistic relationships, recognizing the signs of triangulation and implementing strategies for breaking free, victims can empower themselves to reclaim their autonomy and create healthier, more fulfilling relationships. I'm going to read the rest of these silently. Lastly, the use of flying monkeys allows the narcissist to maintain a positive public image. Never get their hands dirty. Being targeted by narcissists and their flying monkeys can have a Being targeted by narcissists and their flying monkeys can have a devastating impact on the victim's mental and emotional well-being. The consistent and constant gaslighting, manipulation, and isolation can lead to feelings of self-doubt, anxiety, and depression. The victim may question their reality, lose trust in others, and experience a decline in self-esteem. Additionally, the relentless attacks and character assassination by flying monkeys can cause significant damage to the victim's reputation, relationships, and overall quality of life. Given my perspective and whole understanding of the situation, of what happened more than 2 years ago at this point, or around 2 years ago, Even now I try to speak and I feel silence. Lovely. Even now I try to talk about it and I feel like no one's going to give a shit. What the fuck? What the fuck? I did my best to try and give space to let go, to step away. I tried to make sure that the other person was at least informed and left better aware so as to be safer and protect themselves more dynamically. And then the honesty and toxic shame end up twisted and amplified into the worst of someone else's fears, discounting and discrediting the authenticity of my story and my event, my perspective on the events, to where I am abandoned by a good chunk of a social group I once called home. I was flawed and I was in the wrong for the first half of things. That's the reason why I say I take 90% responsibility. It was my own insecurity and toxic shame fighting against one another that led to a lack of self control in regards to insecure flirting. Pure emotional panic and no channel to try and communicate it through. Because a misunderstanding left the other person thinking that I was trying to force my love for them on them. And then, when my insecurity finally started dying down, my toxic shame was left looking at the person, wondering why they hadn't called us out, why they hadn't spoken up, why they hadn't drawn a line for themselves sooner, why hadn't they confronted us about our insecure behavior instead of avoiding heavy conversations and being able to talk, even if it was uncomfortable. My toxic shame confronted the other person and tried to spur them into standing up for themselves so that the tension could be resolved, so that we might finally get into some kind of conflict or argument where real things would be said and not just polite formalities. Not just uncomfortable shifting as one person tries to avoid the topic while the other person tries to regain control over themselves, recontain their insecurity, and resolve things so that way it no longer hangs above both people's heads. "90% responsibility is me being greedy. I prefer viewing it as 80% responsibility. But if you want to play a joke and make it casual, make it polite, I'll take the 90. Last 10% can be divided amongst the others. That person included." Every deflection, every attempt to not talk about it, every time I tried to communicate and was silently told in body language and choices made that the other person did not want to deal with it. Yeah, I'm hurt. Yeah, I'm hurt. Even so, I'm not gonna hate them. That is my choice to make. It's the kind of person I want to be. Doesn't mean tolerating bullshit all over again. Doesn't mean blindly forgiving someone who either has or hasn't grown. No idealization. No pretending that there is any hope right now. No pretending that the dense dork and the fiction I saw of them are ever going to be reconnected with one another. I am tearing it apart by hand, slowly and surely, so help me, even if it fights me with the force of a vice. I am not staying here. Not because I will not be bound here by my toxic shame. I will not be bound here by isolationist idealizations of black and white. I refuse to give up on myself. Even now, even back then, I refused to give up on myself. And you will never take that away from me. Not because you can't, but because I know that it's my choice to make. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up hurt from going through that situation. But they weren't the only one hurt from it. The shackles of toxic shame can overlap with the shackles of spite, but only when spite is burning low in an effort to prove to others things that need not be proven. When spite is burning high, burning healthily for the encouragement and betterment of oneself, one separates from that fear and toxic shame and takes their own self-worth into their hands instead of leaving it to be found in the world around them, instead of leaving it in the hands of others. Neither me nor the dense dark intended to hurt the other. At least not in the beginning. However, that doesn't mean that we individually didn't each carry traits that when combined can cause problems, disasters to unfold. And that's what happened. That is why I'm staying away from them. That is the reason why, even if I even ever see them again, the first thing I'm doing is hiding their avatar and reminding myself to keep my boundaries up. Because I tried letting my boundaries down to try and reach out to them, to try and communicate. It did not work. I stumbled and I failed and I struggled so hard. And it just didn't work because they didn't even know I was trying. I'm not sure they really wanted me trying. Let's go. I cannot stop the other person from feeling pain, just like how they cannot stop me from feeling pain. It is not my responsibility to try and regulate their emotions, and it should never be their responsibility to try and regulate mine. Interdependence and co-regulation emerges not from protecting someone from things, but in sitting with them and acknowledging harsh, painful realities and letting them know that you're still there. I found several things, but I can't just go at them endlessly. Otherwise, I burn myself out. Facing myself is part of the learning and healing process, too. Three, two, one, let's go. Da-da, da, da-da. What I think of them does not matter to their life. How I feel about them should not affect their life. How they react to where I'm at is not my responsibility to manage or handle, because those are their feelings to feel, process, and learn from in order to better be there for themselves. So we were cowards. So we were liars. So we're not heroes. We're still survivors. The dreamers, the fighters, no lying, I'm tired. But jump in the fire, and I'll be right there by your side. Ah. By speaking up and telling the other person to speak up and making sure they would at least feel heard and supported, I unintentionally set myself up to deal with the backlash and damage of my insecurity and rash actions in trying to keep myself quiet, in trying to mirror their coping mechanisms, in trying so damn hard to just let them walk through that experience and be there for themselves properly, for them to learn how to. But the reality is, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I would not have been okay with them just never seeing me as me, only ever seeing me for the insecure parts. But hey, even in trying to be authentic, you can also be desperate and insecure, and that can get in the way of what you're trying to do. I was in emotional pain. I was desperate and insecure. I was fighting my damn self throughout that entire situation. At least, let it be known, as a point of personal pride, that I made sure the other person would be able to recover and heal. Really, I should have fucking just stopped panicking, but it's easier said than done. No matter how far I may step forwards, no matter how far I struggle towards living my own life, it feels like the pain of the past has me pinned to the moment in time where my last attempt to communicate was dismissed, disbelieved, and turned into ammunition to accuse me of even further bullshit. How am I supposed to move on from that? I just don't get it. My definition of self is not in that pain. My definition of self is not in what happened or if I was or wasn't believed. My mind and bodies are extensions of me. They are not the singular point of self. My feelings, my history, the life I've lived are extensions of me, but they do not define my core self. They are not the innermost dot, the smallest self collapsed, the structure allowed to fall over and just be a dot. I don't have to be any grand structure. I don't have to solve the world's problems. I am allowed to just be. Fucking hell. Mm, mm. No, this situation between me and that dense dork started from a majority of my own flaws. And I will keep doing my best to own up to that, to take responsibility for it, and carry the things I've learned forwards, while leaving the shame behind. And I am not going to let that dense dork back into my life, unless they're willing to acknowledge and take responsibility for their part in things too. They may not have known better, but that doesn't mean that they are not responsible for the impacts of their choices and actions, just like how I am responsible for the impacts of my choices and actions, regardless of my original intentions. The dark is only comforting when you know that there's an end to it. When it's become all you know, and you're used to it being the norm, it can be hard to think about anything other than sitting in the darkness. To those of you who snuck by and watched a fragment of this recording for whatever reason, thanks. To those of you who stuck around and watched a good chunk through, I deeply appreciate it. I hope you have a good day, a good night, whatever time or non-time it is. And if it isn't good, I hope that it improves. The Suffering Game. I don't even know that series. I just stumbled on this music and it's good enough. Good night, everyone. May I see you again some other day.